I'm sorry for looking like I'm in the dark here. My lamp is kind of burnt out. But hello, ladies and gentlemen, it is your host with the most, Avery LR32 here. Destroy the ever-living boo-boo, staying off that like and subscribe button so we can climb even higher, the 1700 ladder. We've been exploding like a power level, ladies and gentlemen. I want to kind of cut the intro because I really just want to dive on into this here because I've been getting a little bit of hate, a little bit of a discussion going around my video the other day talking about how Worlds was a dumpster fire this year. And I want to talk about some of the things that I saw some people confused on, and also talk about an interesting interaction I saw. It was on Facebook, but the screenshots are from Twitter, about how some players were talking about how like OCG players are kind of trash now as compared to the TCG players, because years and years ago it used to be that anytime Worlds came up, OCG always won because OCG just always had the better players. And I also got an interesting comment from someone on this initial post that I did on my community tab, who talked about living in Asia or Japan, something like that, and how Yugioh seems to be more casual there. And I did talk about that in the past on one of my more popular videos called OCG versus TCG. If you go under my videos tab and hit popular, you'll see it. And I talked about, after talking with this guy who I think like lived in Korea for some time because he was in the military, he talked about how the different cultures surrounding Yu-Gi-Oh really kind of impacts their game as a whole. And so I want to talk about and kind of get more into fine detail what it is that my opinions are on the game as a whole and what I find to be a good format. So look, I've been having a lot of people been telling me, Avery, you need to play Justice Hunters format. This is a great format. It's a lot of fun. And the argument I've had to that is all three of the archetypes out of Justice Hunters can play on your turn. I've been playtesting any craft. Granted, that doesn't have a lot of interaction because it's honestly a really crappy pendulum deck. It's going to probably be built like a runic stun deck here in the TCG once we get it. But like I had a Yummy player make an Arclight on their turn, and then during my turn they made another fucking Arclight. So I'm like, what's the point of even playing at this point? And Draco Tail, same thing. They've got the blue bitch, as I call her, that they can pitch from hand and then make a fusion. Someone on YouTube was trying to tell me that Draco Tail can't play on your turn, and I was actually kind of shocked by that. K9, of course, they've got Izuna to dump the Lupus summon and then make a rank 5 exceed, and then, okay, I'm past the 1 minute mark. They can tell you to eat their ass until it resembles a California raisin. Like, it's fucking ridiculous, right? So what bothers me about the modern format, to kind of get that in stone, which I've talked about that in my quitting competitive Yu-Gi-Oh video that I posted 3 months ago. I'm now 3 months sober from competitive Yu-Gi-Oh. I've been touching a lot more grass. Yes, your boy has. But one of the things that has really bothered me as of late is how many decks can play on your fucking turn, right? And the amount of hand traps. Now, some people will say, oh, well, Avery, we've got more board breakers in the format now because Yummy can just play through it, so they lose more to board breakers and things like that. But again, as I've said in previous videos, it was like one other previous video, but I said that the power creep of the game and the change of the format should not dictate the lack of hand traps or the increase thereof, right? Like, with how many hand traps we have in the game and all the mini-maxis, mulch armies and shit, I'm tired of playing in that, right? I want to see a decrease in that, whether it's by hits on the ban list or however it is that they decide to go about that. And I'm also tired of decks that play on your turn. And it doesn't really get that much better with Phantom Revenge because any craft, they can't really play on your turn other than like setting interruptions. And we'll talk about that in a second with the Fiendsmith engine because of the format that I think has been really healthy as of late. And it's not just because I made day 2 of YCS Orlando. I do think that that format's healthy. We'll talk about that in a second. But then you have Hecka Hands and Killer Tune. Killer Tune can play on your turn because they can make a turn 0 synchro. And they can also rip a card out of your extra deck with Mix. Like, it's ridiculous. And then Hecka Hands, depending on how it gets built here in the TCG, may or may not be able to play on your turn. Hecka Hands can kind of do things on your turn from what I've experienced, like against a pure build, and kind of like reading the cards and messing around with them. But then I've seen people messing around with Draco Tail Hecka Hands, which seems busted AF. And that deck can, of course, play on your turn. Now, I'm sure some people are going to say, well, Avery, what about the Fiendsmith engine? Let's tie that into what I think has been a more healthier format as of late. To be honest, Fiendsmith, Rizal, and Malice format, like pre-Mitsurugi and all that. Going into YCS Orlando, you had Fiendsmith, Rizal at full power, Malice. You also had Memento. You had Mermail. You had a lot of different decks to pick from, and you really weren't picking a bad deck per se. Yeah, you were maybe going to be at a disadvantage if you didn't play Rizal or Malice, because those were objectively the two best decks in the room, but you had other options. Like I played against a Memento deck. I think I played against one or two Memento decks at YCS Orlando. I'd have to look back at my deck profile. And then, of course, I played against a bunch of Rizal and Malice and all that jazz. But I felt that that format overall was healthy because even with Rizal having a detonator and a cross and all that, yes, they were interruptions, but they weren't fucking Herald of the Arclight having two of them on the board where they're both Macrocosmos and they're Omni Negates. Like, yes, Cross is a good card. Yes, Detonator is busted. But I would rather deal with that than a Yummy player with level 1s with 3,000 attack because of their fucking field spell and two Arclights up, and they're just sitting there like, you go and finish that pizza? Add some extra pineapple to it. Pineapple's good on pizza, by the way, just saying. And so, to me, that's just toxic. I felt that that format overall was great. It was fun. The Fiendsmith engine does not do the same as like a Yummy engine or Canine engine because of what it can do. Yes, Lacrima can dump, say, like a Paradise or an Engraver for whatever reason, like, you know, to set you up for next turn. But that's setting up for future plays. Yes, Paradise is an interruption, but it's not an Omni Negate interruption. Like, that's why that they've banned a lot of these Omni Negates because these M boards were just so oppressive, which makes me think that Arclight will get banned, and I think it should get banned. I don't care what anyone says. Call it a lack of knowledge, call it a lack of playing the format, which people said I'm a D1 hater, which I'm actually an A1 hater because, you know, my name begins with the letter A, but whatever, pimp. Look, I've been playing the game almost 20 years. I don't have to necessarily play a format for 80 hours a fucking week to know how the stuff functions. Like, I can objectively see how things are going to roll because of my previous experience of nearly 20 years, 17 years to be exact, but what's 3 more years at this point? So the Fiendsmith engine, yes, it was busted going into YCS Orlando, but it was also one of those things that if you if you compare it to K9, right? The K9 engine is leaps and bounds much stronger than the Fiendsmith engine, I would argue. Oh, well, Avery, you can set up Disarray, which is technically a multiple Omni Negate. Sure, but you're also walking into a Nibiru, unless like you were smart, like I showed off in the Y spreadsheets or a scam video, and you know you bait out the nib and then you go for the Disarray, assuming that the opponent didn't have another hand trap. So that is sort of the dichotomy of what I'm talking about, and that's where I'm like hot and bothered with this format. Now, with that being said, I want to talk about this post that you're going to see on the screen, where it was 2 photos here. But there's this one that says, this proves the OCG is way behind now. This person said, I don't know if Max C dulled their skills or a lot of their competitive players just got older and quit, but the OCG, just aren't as good at the game anymore. And we did have as good players in the past mastering their skills on Dueling Book / Dueling Network. This person said, no surprise there. The TCG grind is real and it shows. The sheer volume of play and competition just builds a different level of player. And I don't know why it's not showing both photos, but there was another photo where someone talked about a similar thing where, here we go, where they said, for me, 3rd year in a row I get to post this. Master Duel Worlds won by a TCG team. I'm sorry, Master Shit Worlds. 7 of the top 8 in the physical worlds are TCG players. It really highlights how much volume the TCG plays, the non-stop events, regional, large player base, and ease of access to play online. Keep sharpening the level of competition that consistency shows. The amount of Yu-Gi-Oh! I know these people play is disgusting. Now, I did get an interesting comment on here that I may not be able to have time to read because it's pretty long, but this guy makes the point of OCG players treat Yu-Gi-Oh! Like a game as Takahashi intended. TCG players treat it like a sport. That's very true because the OCG, not to get into the whole thing of TCG versus OCG, if you want to see the video, I definitely recommend go watching the video, but basically they have an honor system. You know, a lot of players aren't going to be over there playing Mystic Mine, but they actually had local OTS stores in Japan back when Mystic Mine was legal. Like, they had a sign on their door saying you're not allowed to play Mystic Mine here. And that was hilarious because even the OCG saw how toxic that card was, which I saw some people talking about Mystic Mine, and they were like, oh, this is why I enjoyed playing Mystic Mine because it punished these heavy combo players. And I actually commented back to this person in the video from the other day where I was like, listen, people that enjoy Mystic Mine, which my dad was a perfect example of that, people who enjoyed Mystic Mine didn't like Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, that's just a fact, right? Like, the people, and I know people personally, my dad being one of them, where when Mystic Mine was revealed and it came out here, my dad and other players I knew played it religiously. And then when it got banned, those players that I saw at regionals playing Mystic Mine, they just quit the game. I never saw them again. My dad went back to not really caring about the format anymore. And it didn't help him either that he became worse as a player overall because he played it for the 4 straight years, I think, that it was legal. So he lost out on 4 years of getting better at the game and knowing what cards do. So he's just so behind that it's ridiculous. Like, you didn't have to pay attention to what your opponent's cards did. So if you played Mystic Mine and you enjoyed it, you didn't like Yu-Gi-Oh! To begin with. Like, the game moved on from you a long time ago. It was basically players who hated what modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Was, so they played Mystic Mine to troll people, and then when it got banned, they just quit the game again. That's all it fucking was. This guy goes on to say, TCG players often demand the TCG to do the OCG rarity system for cheaper cards, but the fact remains that there's no market for that in the TCG. If something isn't surely competitive, then the TCG player base won't bother. There's no consumer culture in the West of simply buying product and goods of something you like in order to support it. Like there is in Asia. Thus, TCG Yu-Gi-Oh! Has no casual market like the OCG does. It's also why the ban lists are different too. OCG has had more competition to deal with other card games. Duel Master, One Piece, Vanguard, Pokemon, Digimon, Gundam, Y-Shores, Wix Cross, etc. are all extremely popular in Japan and OCG regions, which is true. There are a lot of different card games that don't do well here in TCG land, but over in the OCG, they're doing great, and you can look at the public sales figures to see that. This guy says, ultimately, TCG does have better competitive players, but that's, again, because competitive play is all the TCG really has left. That's true. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has absolutely nuked its casual market in the West to where it's become completely unsustainable, leaving behind what's effectively an expensive esport. And Konami wants to somehow make Master Shits an esport, which I don't see how, because it's best of one and it's dog shit. But that aside, again, it's two totally different cultures. When you look at what the TCG has to offer compared to the OCG, yeah, this dude really has a good point, because it's like Konami has nuked all the other formats. Like, retro formats really don't exist anymore officially. You know, you can go to R-Bets and things for Edison, but Konami really doesn't support their retro events. If they do, it's like they do pods, and then they call it, time travel instead of time wizard, where like you have to play with the current rules and shit, and it's just not the same. So, look, at the end of the day, and this is what I want to hit home and make clear, if you enjoy the current format, you do you, Sugar Boo Bear. Don't let some Harambe-looking hairy-ass dude on the internet tell you how to think. I come on here because I've got a big mouth and people want to know what the hell I have to say. Like, who cares, right? If you're enjoying the format and you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh! With your buddies and it's keeping you out of trouble and you're making memories and you're having a blast, go for it, man. Who cares what I say? Let it roll off your ass and just enjoy. If you're having fun, who cares what some dude on the internet with less than 1,800 subscribers has to say? Whether I'm right or wrong, I like to think I'm pretty right, but there are people who are going to think I'm wrong. And when it comes to liking or hating a format, there are people to this day who tell me I hate Edison. There are people to this day who tell me I hate GOAT format, which is kind of fair because apparently it's just Cyberstein the decks. There are people who hate hat format. There are people who love Dragon Ruler format when it was just Dragon Rulers and spellbooks. And I still, to this day, say it's one of the worst formats of all time. And even what really began what is now the modern Yu-Gi-Oh! That was just kind of the first iteration of it. But there are people who like these formats that I hate. Like, everyone has an opinion, like everyone has an anus. Just some people don't know how to use that opinion properly. So, look, guys, let me know what you think about all this down in the comments below. I still think that Worlds was trash. I think that them giving rubber mats and not cloth play mats for prizing, I think, is ridiculous. But I'm never going to be going to Worlds. And look, the people that did well, congrats to them. Like I said in the video, like one person said, like, you're hating on the game, yet you like it. I'm confused. Look, I congratulated the people who won Worlds at the end of the video. But I do think I needed to kind of clear the air on where my mindset is on the game. So that way now, if someone says I'm just a hater, nah, pimp, you just don't keep up with the content on the channel. Because I do like the game. I just don't like where it's at right now. Especially when Mitsurugi first came out. If you didn't open up Drone Lockbird, you just lost the game because the board was so strong it was basically an FTK. Guys, let me know what you think about all this down in the comments below. Really interesting to see what people are doing about hating on the OCG when they're in TCG land. How far the OCG is falling. Guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.